This is ABC15 Mornings.
Now at 6, a big push to get Arizonans vaccinated. But now we're learning that parts of our state are facing a shortage of vaccines.
And his job is to protect and serve, and one police officer did just that when protesters broke into the U.S. Capitol. Now lawmakers are pushing to get him the Congressional Gold Medal.
The coronavirus sure has changed a lot of things, hasn't it? Including the hiring process. And some companies are looking to hire outside candidates. But this morning, I'm sitting down with an expert to talk about the importance of growing internal employee talent. You know, climbing that ladder once you find a place that you want to settle into. 6 o'clock on this Saturday. We're so glad you're starting it off with us. I'm NOHELANI GRAF.
And I'm Mark Thompson. Happy Saturday to you, Nohe. Happy Saturday to everybody out there. I mean, gosh, we got great weather on tap. I'm seeing all types of things about baby showers. I mean, what a fantastic weekend we are in store for, Nohe.
Yeah, definitely. I might know a little something about that. My baby shower is going to be virtual, but you can bet that I'm going to have the patio door wide open so that we can feel that breeze coming in from outside and then just enjoy the temperatures this weekend because they're going to be great. Let's get into that most accurate forecast. Pretty mild start to the morning. It is certainly still cool out there, so you definitely still need a long sleeve or a jacket if you're walking the dog this morning because, you know, low 40s is still cold, and that's what it is in Goodyear, mid 40s in Glendale. But we're already in the 50s in Phoenix and close to that in Mesa. If you've got some time, though, you know, grab just a nice hot cup of coffee or some tea this morning. Sunrise is at 7:32 because we're going to stay in the 40s for a while. Settle in with us. By 9 o'clock, we'll be in the 50s, so still pretty crisp, but nice and comfortable. I'm going to talk about the warm-up, though, that is headed our way coming up in that most accurate forecast.
All right, Nohe, thank you so much. And this morning, the nation is on high alert with the presidential inauguration just 4 days away. The FBI is warning about possible new threats from domestic violent extremists. Among the FBI's top concerns for Inauguration Day is the substantial threat of improvised explosive devices. Sources tell ABC News an inauguration rehearsal planned by the Biden team Sunday has been postponed. The president-elect says he's confident that he will be safe.
Do you feel safe about Wednesday based on the intelligence that you've seen?
Yes. As for President Trump, sources tell ABC that he'll depart Washington on the morning of January 20th, hours before President-elect Joe Biden is sworn in. And in the wake of the riots last week, another cabinet member has resigned. Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar. In the letter he addressed to President Trump, Azar outlined what he considered to be his department's strongest accomplishments over the past 4 years, but he also cited the riots, saying that the actions and rhetoric of the past week threatened to tarnish the legacies of the administration. He plans to stay in his role until President-elect Joe Biden and his team takes over next week.
This morning, we're learning that the man who was seen wearing the horns and the face paint at the riots will stay in police custody. Jacob Chansley, a.k.a. QAnon Shaman, a.k.a. Jake Angeli, faces multiple felony and misdemeanor charges for his alleged role in the storming of the Capitol. Chansley's attorney tried to get him released on GPS monitoring, but the judge ordered the 33-year-old held in jail without bond. He's eventually going to be transferred to Washington, D.C. to stand trial there. Meantime, Chansley's mother attended the hearing here in the Valley, and she left quickly afterward.
Are you surprised by the judge's decision?
No.
Have you been able to talk to Jacob? What has he told you?
Chansley did ask to speak at the end of the hearing, but the judge did not allow that.
All right, now to a developing story. Police, they are looking for a hit-and-run driver this morning. 44-year-old Renee Contreras, she was hit and killed back in November. The crash happening near 43rd Avenue and Indian School. The picture of the possible SUV involved, it's really hard to see, but that's all detectives really have to go on right now. If you know anything about this case, you are urged to call silent witness.
Well, we know that this has been a big frustration point for so many of you. Right now, Arizona is working to expand its vaccine distribution, But this morning, one of the big concerns is running out of doses. Parts of Arizona reporting vaccine shortages already and other supply issues. It's a pretty tricky balance, though, putting Arizonans right in the middle. As for signing up to get that shot, too, that's also provided its own headaches as well. This morning, our Nicole Valdez speaking with two Arizonans who are trying their best to navigate the system, like so many of you.
Yeah, just to get their first shot, some on the priority list and others in the high-risk category still struggling, whether it's trying to get through over the phone or find a slot online.
It's causing a great deal of anxiety.
77-year-old Homer Frazier's been trying and trying and trying to get an appointment. The Mesa man says he's called ADHS every 2 hours every day for the last week. No answer.
This happened probably 3-4 times a day up until I think yesterday was the first day we actually got a real life person.
Without a computer, it's his only option to sign up to get the vaccine.
I was just told there are no appointments, so just start calling again next Tuesday.
Demand for the vaccine skyrocketing as more Arizonans become eligible to get their first dose, but supply dwindling. Pinal County running low, Yuma County a similar story, and a complicated and overwhelmed statewide registration system isn't helping.
I've got to start competing with the 65-year-olds and higher. I could be looking at March, April, May, June before I even am considered to receive my first shot.
Travel nurse David Ryan also on the struggle bus.
It's just been a nightmare. Every time I went in, it was just there are no appointments. Everything's blocked up.
He admits he waited until this week to try to find a slot.
I didn't need it. I wasn't around anybody. So I'm like, I'm going to wait until I get back to work, and that's when I'll get it. And well, oops on me.
A lot of his time, though, already taken up by working 13-hour days on the front lines.
I understand the process. We're trying to vaccinate 400 million people as fast as we can.
He found an opening on February 5th in Tucson.
I don't know how to fix it, but I just know it's a problem. It'd be nice if they got some awareness and said, hey, maybe we can do something to make this a little bit better.
And as of Thursday, more than 200,000 COVID-19 vaccines have been administered in our state. Now, I'm told if you are a frontline healthcare worker in Maricopa County and still haven't gotten your vaccine, you can visit one of now 2 major vaccination sites, State Farm Stadium, which is up and running now, and eventually Phoenix Municipal Stadium, which will open up next month. And you can just come by and show your badge, and you should be able to get your shot. In Phoenix, Nicole Valdez, ABC15, Arizona.
And this morning, if you are struggling to set up an appointment, there might be a way to get a vaccine without actually having to do so. Dr. Kara Chris speaking with our news partners KTAR News and says that if you are in a vehicle with someone who's getting a vaccine, you might qualify to get one as well. It depends on how many no-show appointments have happened and if the person in the vehicle is a caretaker to the other person. This is on a case-by-case basis. Now, despite these issues, vaccinations, they are happening, and it is important to get your shot if you can. You can register anytime using the website pod-vaccine.azdhs.gov, or if you prefer to call, you can dial 1-844-542-8201, or the simplest way is to just dial 211. Now, if you do call, please keep in mind that you may need to wait on the phone for quite a bit, as there are a lot of people, as you just saw, who are attempting to get vaccinated.
Time now 6:08 on your Saturday. Let's talk about that most accurate forecast. If you're somebody who likes to get up early and get your workout in, it's chilly out there. We're in the 40s across much of the valley. That sunrise time not until 7:32 this morning, and we're going to stay cool through that 10 o'clock hour in the 50s, but it actually will be perfect running weather today. By 2 o'clock, we're in the mid 70s. We'll have mostly sunny skies, just a few high thin clouds today, and staying dry. So it's actually going to be a gorgeous day. It will be a little warmer towards the second half of the day. 77 is that forecast high. Not quite as warm as yesterday, just a little bit cooler, but still bragging rights weather all the way. I will talk about the rest of that weekend forecast for you because things are changing. Temperatures will be dropping. I'll show you when and how low they'll go coming up in that full, most accurate forecast.
All right, Nohe, thank you. Well, happening today, the city of Chandler hosting a virtual multicultural festival. The festival will be streaming live on Facebook from 11 until noon. It will feature some performing artists, and it will have several cooking demonstrations and segments going on as well.
Well, you've probably seen his story by now. He lured rioters away from the Senate chambers during protests in the Capitol. And now lawmakers are working to reward that lone police officer who stopped protesters from getting to the Senate floor.
A hero for sure. And we already have several types of coronavirus tests, but now an ASU researcher is working on, this is not a sticker, a scratch and sniff test. You're going to want to stick around to see the details on this one. That's coming up. All right, welcome back, everybody. Now to the very latest on the coronavirus. You know, we've got the nose swab, we've got the saliva test, but now researchers are working on what they're calling a scratch and sniff test for COVID-19. An ASU researcher is designing a smell test that would help identify new cases. The study is being funded by the National Institutes of Health. The researchers say that one's sense of smell is a large indicator that you are positive for COVID-19. Now they're looking to confirm that with data. One test is really simple. It's a scratch and sniff test. Another focuses on the amount of odor that is detected. Thousands of participants will complete those smell tests and are also expected to take a viral test. Then researchers, they will compare the results. The second part of the study will see how these tests help in larger settings identifying big outbreaks.
For example, you would want to do this in schools. If the kids show up in the morning and take the test, you'd immediately know what this if there was a change in the level of smell loss at the school levels, then you would know that maybe there was a COVID outbreak.
They hope to have preliminary results back in March and possibly get these smell tests out into the community that spring. They ultimately hope for FDA approval if those tests prove to be successful. Now back to those protests in Washington, D.C. You may have seen that one police officer luring those rioters away from lawmakers, and now a lot of the lawmakers want to reward him for his service. For more on this, here is Alex Miller.
Rioters came even closer to Vice President Mike Pence and members of the Senate than originally thought. At one point, reportedly just 100 feet away. Keeping them from getting any closer was one police officer. Officer Eugene Goodman can be seen in this video luring the mob of angry Trump supporters away from the entrance to the Senate floor and down a different hallway. The Washington Post reports this was just 1 minute after Pence was moved out of the chamber and into a room along the hallway. The Senate doors had not yet been secured. A bipartisan group in Congress, including Florida Congressman Charlie Crist, want to award Goodman the Congressional Gold Medal. That and the Presidential Medal of Freedom are the highest civilian honors.
It is incredibly uplifting to see somebody with that kind of courage and that kind of focus and that kind of public service and doing it what's right.
Fewer than 200 Congressional Gold Medals have been handed out in our nation's history. Previous recipients include Winston Churchill, Mother Teresa, Rosa Parks, and Nelson Mandela.
God bless Officer Goodman, a very good man. It's a lot to be grateful for.
All of this comes as we are learning more about what officers endured on January 6th, outnumbered both inside and outside the Capitol.
It was difficult to offer any resistance when you're only about 30 guys going up against 15,000.
D.C. Metro Police Officer Michael Fanone says the mob tasered him several times as he guarded the same spot Joe Biden will take his oath Wednesday.
I remember guys were stripping me of my gear, and then some guys started getting a hold of my gun, and they were screaming out, kill him with his own gun. At that point, it was just like self-preservation. How do I survive this situation?
Tens of thousands of National Guard troops and officers are stationed in Washington, D.C. ahead of the inauguration to protect the city and to make sure officers are not outnumbered again. In Washington, Alex Miller, Newsy.
About a quarter past the top of the hour on this Saturday, let's get you that full, most accurate forecast this morning. It's, of course, a frigid start in the high country, but actually not as cold in some places as we've seen the last couple of mornings. We are still in the teens in Window Rock, but we've worked our way into the 20s at the Grand Canyon. We're in the 20s in Winslow and Heber. Live temperature update in Prescott, now sitting at 45 degrees. Same temperature in Flagstaff. Out in Safford, you're just a degree above freezing this morning. Compared to this time yesterday, the Phoenix metro area is actually 2 degrees warmer than it was, if you can call 2 degrees warmer, than it was this time yesterday. Also a little more mild in Sedona this morning. Winslow 14 degrees warmer now than you were 24 hours ago, and about 10 degrees warmer at the Grand Canyon. Safford, though, you're down just a little bit. So a closer look at those valley temperatures this morning. The temperatures dipped a degree in Maricopa, so you're sitting at 37 this morning, but we otherwise are in the 40s. 40 degrees in Queen Creek, close to that in Gilbert, low 40s in Ahwatukee and Levine, mid 40s in Surprise and Glendale this morning. But Anthem and Fountain Hills, you're already in the 50s at this hour. I do want to let you know that our pollen right now, juniper, is the main allergen. And so you might notice a little irritation today, but really the day to prep for and kind of have your allergy medications ready is on Tuesday. We're going to be in the higher end of that moderate category. So just be aware you might be sniffling a little bit more come Tuesday. As for this afternoon, we stay cool this morning in the 40s, and then by about 9-10 o'clock we cross over into the 50s, but we won't be in the 50s for long. We're crossing over into the 60s by 11 o'clock. At lunchtime, noon, we're in the upper 60s, and then the 70s follow shortly thereafter, and then it'll be a pretty rapid warm up. By about 3 o'clock is when we'll reach our peak heat. Upper 70s today, not quite as warm as yesterday, but still fairly close to 80 degrees and 10 degrees above the average. 77 is that forecast high, basically valley wide. We are going to see a few 80s to our south, including in Tucson and Yuma along our western border, Lake Havasu City. You're likely to make it into the 80s today, mid 60s across central Arizona. So it'd be great hiking weather if you want to go to the Red Rocks in Sedona. And we're staying in the low 50s north of the rim. So a great day to walk around Flagstaff, 52 degrees there. It'll be in the low 50s in Show Low. But you will notice some clouds moving into the eastern portion of our state, so it's going to be mostly cloudy there. Higher elevations north of Show Low and portions of Heber could see a few snow showers, including the Four Corners area. Otherwise, we stay dry statewide. We're going to continue to have some of those high, thin clouds here in the valley as well, but we stay dry through the weekend. Our temperatures start to trend down just a little Sunday and into Monday, back down into the low 70s. And then the 60s are back on Tuesday, along with, look at that, a 30% chance of rain. Yeah, we've got rain chances and snow chances in the high country. So I'll talk about that in that 7-day forecast in just a little bit, Mark.
All right, Nohe, thank you. Coming up, the coronavirus, it has changed the hiring process for many companies, meaning some are now looking to recruit outside candidates. But this morning, we're talking to an expert about growing internal talent.
As part of the Rebound Arizona, we've been putting a focus on how to get Arizonans back to work, but that also includes making sure that companies know when it's time to hire internally and build up their existing talent. So to help us with that this morning is Umesh Ramakrishnan. He is the CEO, co-CEO of Kingsley Gate, and they're an executive search firm. Umesh, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, NOHELANI.
So when we're looking at an organization, how do they figure out when it's time to start focusing on the talent that they have to promote from within, maybe to create those other open positions for new employees?
Well, the answer to that is pretty simple, always and all the time, because the easiest person you can hire is somebody who already works for you. The biggest issue about hiring somebody, NOHELANI, is not whether they have the skills. Discerning that's not very difficult. You look through a resume, do an hour-long interview, and you pretty much know whether he or she can do the job. Whether they will be a cultural fit in your organization is the most difficult thing to ascertain. Now, if you're already working there, that's a pretty good guarantee that you already are a cultural fit. So you should have a very detailed succession plan, not just for the CEO of the organization, but up and down that org chart so that everybody knows what their path forward is.
Yeah, how would you suggest fine-tuning that process as an organization to create that step ladder so that it is a reasonable expectation for employees and a goal to aim for?
It needs to be a very well thought out, structured program. For instance, at Kingsley Gate Partners, we have a program called P2P, Path to Partner, and it details out the steps that you need to take with gates and the tests you need to pass along the way. So you know how to go from position A to B to C to D, all the way up to the very top of the organization. You have to give your employees that path, because otherwise they're going to find the path elsewhere. And more importantly, if the third level position, for instance, is eliminated or the person leaves, somebody's always there to step in without missing a beat.
Who does the burden fall on to follow up when it's time to apply internally and move up? Is that something that kind of the executives should have in mind and make it clear of you're on this path? Or is it more the employee who needs to say, hey, I'd like to be considered for this?
Well, both. But the most important thing is for the executive team to determine whether there's a skill gap. Is there something we need to do where we don't have those skills internally? Even if you don't, the quick decision to be made is, can we get somebody trained up quickly? Because the one thing that you cannot do is you cannot transform your organization. The very word transformation means to change. You can't change if all you know is what you know. So for any firm or company that undertakes a transformation project, you always bring in talent from the outside. But even when you hire people from the inside, NOHELANI, we always recommend starting a process with external candidates as well, because what you want to do is compare and contrast and see where the chips fall. Because even the candidate that gets the job internally should feel like she got it because she deserves it, not because she was just given the job.
Absolutely. And then the last question, something that I think all of us can relate to. How can a company help their team get through the COVID exhaustion and build resiliency?
Bring a lot of variation. All work and no play makes Jack an even duller boy during COVID. So have virtual hangouts, bring in training sessions, change the pace often so that people feel engaged. Engagement is the key.
Yeah, we can't do these Zoom meetings all the time this way. You got to mix it up sometimes. Umesh, thank you so much. I know that you are also the author of There's No Elevator to the Top, and you offer several more tips for CEOs. So we really appreciate your recommendations this morning.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being with you, NOHELANI.